Good morning, wonderful people. Here's Janine with episode number 4 of Quest for You, where my mission is to help you move into change and toward greatness. You're here. I'm so happy. You know that it's all about showing up. And we talked yesterday about making this podcast part of your morning routine. Well, if you're here again today, that would make day number 4 and you're on the right track. So this is awesome. But establishing and following a routine is showing up. You show up for yourself, you show up for your goals and for what matters. And by doing so, you're taking active steps towards becoming a better you. Too often, we don't do anything. Why is that? Maybe because the task seems too big and too overwhelming. But I think in the beginning, we cannot envision how it will ever materialize. We see the end, but we cannot see the 150 steps in between. It just seems too huge an undertaking. Not enough time, not enough money, or other resources, or support. We just don't know what will happen next. We don't know how we're going to get from A to B. It's like this roller coaster ride that simply looks too scary until you try it. And then you wonder, what took you so long? And what happens when we do nothing? Our dreams stay dreams. We stay in relationships. We stay in jobs in neighborhoods that are not good for us. And just because we cannot see a way out. It could be too complicated. It could get too messy. But the problem is we don't utilize our full potential. And we never really find out what our full potential could be. And then the end comes and we're chased by regrets. Isn't it amazing how much pain we're willing to suffer long term just so we can avoid some short term unknowingness and unease? I agree, change is hard. But every time I've done it, I've always looked back wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Every time. But we have blinders on. We only see the situation we're in. It's normal. It's difficult to predict what will happen when we try something new. The old, we already know what will happen, so it's comfortable. The key is to start something, to take some kind of small action, even if the action is not 100% related, in that you cannot see how it will get you to your end goal. I'll give you a little hypothetical example. Let's say you have a burning desire to live and work overseas for a few years, pack up and live in another country, start somewhere new. But you just have no idea of how to even initiate something like this. You don't have a job that could potentially transfer you. You don't have any friends or relative overseas. All in all, it just doesn't look good for you. But you really want this. You really have this desire to live in another country and maybe have a specific country in mind. So without knowing where you will land, without having any plan or any lead, you could still do something. You could learn a language, for example. One that you always wanted to learn, maybe one that's spoken in the country that you want to live in. You could also travel. You could travel and get to know countries. Let's say you're not fixed on any country. Well, you could start traveling. Even if you only have 2 weeks of vacation a year. You could take those and go to Europe or go to South America. The language course itself is not getting you anywhere closer to the job overseas, but you're taking an action. I always say, in the absence of a well laid out plan, action always trumps inaction. Even if that class doesn't get you anywhere, you have not lost anything by learning something new. You're a tiny step closer, even if it's not directly. You didn't send a job application to a specific job. You didn't apply for your visa. You just took a language class, but the language indirectly is related to you going overseas because you're going to need to be able to speak the language. Let's consider that the class is step 1. You don't see step 2. You don't see step 3, and you don't see step 4. You don't see step 5 through 20. But they may all unfold. Why? How? Because you're closer to your goal. You're more intimate with your goal. Your eyes are open just a bit wider. It's just like when you're looking at buying a certain model of car. Before, you never noticed this kind of car much, but suddenly you're interested in this car. Maybe you test drove it at the dealership, and suddenly you see it on the street everywhere, and that happens with a lot of things. Your focus is now narrowed in towards something that you really want, and more things will come into your vision. So it could go like this. You meet a new friend in that class, and maybe she already has a job with a company, So she's just getting the language squared away. But you may become friends with her, and as your friendship grows, maybe you'll visit her as she is living in the country that you want to live in. Maybe you get a job in her company, or maybe you find another job in that country because she introduces you to some people. This is just a hypothetical scenario, but this is how life goes, and those are events that you cannot predict and that you do not see until you start going down this path. And it could be harder. I realize this. Maybe nothing is clear, and you have to continue searching and taking small steps. And this is how I view this podcast. You are taking action by opening your heart and your mind to be inspired. You're seeking answers, and by showing up regularly, they will come. You're learning consistency. You're making yourself just a tiny bit uncomfortable every day by spending this time. And maybe you're even trying some of the tips and ideas that I'm suggesting here. Not everything is always clear right from the start. All you have to do is just show up. And that is my encouragement today. Show up here regularly and start thinking about the things that ignite your heart. Is it more time with your children? Is it reading and maybe writing poetry? Is it watching the sunset with a cup of tea? Do it. My motivation for you is this. Show up to the things that matter. Show up to the things that you're passionate about. And if you don't know what to do, just take one small step. Step 2 will unfold by itself. What matters to you? What is close to your heart? What are you burning for? What requires change in your life so you can smile again, breathe deeply, and dance in the rain? What sparks your curiosity? What interests you? What is something that you always wanted to do? I would love if you write me via my website, questforyou.com, and share some of those things with me. And I, in turn, will share them on an upcoming podcast. Your dreams and your goals will give aspiration to others. You see, sometimes when we have to go through something, especially if it's difficult, we always tend to think that we are the only ones. All we see is the happy people around us that already have what we still need to accomplish. I want to motivate you to start change in your life. So share with me what's on your mind and let me know what's holding you back. Maybe I can offer some help. Maybe I can address those obstacles in upcoming episodes. So this is my call to action today. Think about what matters to you, and if you're willing to share it with me, please do so on my website. And I'd like to end with a quote. Aren't quotes just amazing? If you don't know Adam Grant, I encourage you to check out who he is. I really like his books, and this quote is from him in his book Originals. When we're determined to reach an objective, it's the gap between where we are and where we aspire to be that lights a fire under us. So please start your day with this fire today, and I wish you all the best, and I'll see you soon.